After Dad's funeral, Mom immediately spoke to me. I'm going to take all of Dad's inheritance of $1,984,000 now that your care is over. You are useless to me. Haha, please leave now. There she is, but to say such a thing right after the funeral, she's really hopeless. However, I've already provided for everything after Father's death, I said with a wide smile on my face. Thank you. I've been waiting for this. My name is Susan, and I am currently 28 years old. I live in my parents' house with my father and mother. My father ran a company and was always busy with work, but he loved me very much. He always came home in the evening to have dinner with me and attended my school activities no matter how busy he was. That's why I loved my good-natured father so much. On the other hand, I had a hard time communicating with my mother. She was always at home, but she didn't show me much affection. When I was little, my paternal grandparents, that is, my father's parents, also lived with us. We lived together in the same house. My mom always said that she was tired of living with them together. Of course, she said this only when neither my father nor my grandparents were around. At times like that, my mom was very scary. It always seemed to my mom that my grandmother was making petty remarks to her, and to relieve the accumulated tension, she would throw heartless words at me. Why are you a girl? I went through all the hardships of childbirth, and for what? Apparently, my grandmother was very strict about making sure that a boy was born into the family, and my mother was disappointed when I, a girl, was born. Grandma was always kind to me, at least outwardly, so I never thought she could say such things to my mother. I tried my best to earn my mother's approval in various ways. Of course, I studied hard, got good grades, and even won swimming competitions. But my father always praised me, but my mother never did. On the contrary, her unkind words to me became more and more offensive. You're so ugly because you look like your father. I can't believe you're my child. My mother was objectively beautiful and gorgeous. I heard that she used to work as a model, and my father approached my mother so hard that they tied the knot. My mother thought marrying my father, a wealthy businessman, would allow her to live a comfortable life, but she became frustrated when she had to live with his parents right after their marriage. However, my mother never demeaned me in front of my father or grandparents, always behaving quietly. Even as a child, I learned that there are deceitful adults like her in the world. When I was 14, my grandmother passed away. The following year, my grandfather also died of illness. After that, there was no one left to restrain my mother. My mother's behavior worsened. She partied every day, indulging in luxury with my father's money, neglecting housework, and living as if I didn't exist. So I managed the household chores while attending school. At that time, my father was working hard to recover the company's stock value, which had dropped after my grandfather's death. It seemed like he had no time or energy to worry about home. I felt a bit lonely, but I understood how hard he was working and couldn't say anything more than that. I aspired to attend a prestigious university and eventually join and support my father's company. I even dreamed of taking over the business someday. I never wanted to live off someone else like my mother, just sucking the sweet nectar of life without effort. That's why I worked hard, building up my efforts. As a result, I got into prestigious high schools and universities, steadily moving closer to my goals. By then, my father's business had stabilized, and he was delighted to know that I wanted to join his company after graduating from a prestigious university. So my father let me work as an intern in his company during my third year of university. The employees were very kind and taught me the work patiently. I learned a lot about how the company operates. After graduating, I joined my father's company as a full-time employee. My mother continued to live as she pleased, and I barely had any conversation with her. I disliked seeing my mother's face when I returned home, so after becoming a full-time employee, I moved out to live alone. My father seemed sad about me moving out, but I brushed it off as a practice run for when I get married someday. I worked hard in my father's company. He was different at work, more strict and commanding, unlike when at home. Of course, he treated me not as his daughter, but as an employee during work. Although I wasn't in a position to work directly with him as the president, we rarely interacted at work. But after work, he would often contact me for dinner. Then he would completely switch back to being my loving, doting father. I always found this gap amusing. The work was challenging with a lot to learn, but I managed because of his care and concern. As I continued working in my father's company, 5 years quickly passed. During this time, my father had an accident and suffered a severe leg injury, requiring caregiving. He was confined to a wheelchair, and I couldn't trust my mother to care for him. Despite not wanting to see my mother, I returned home to live and care for him. I have to see your ugly face again. Despite my mother's harsh words, I decided not to care. I spent my days caring for my father while working at the company. My father, even while in a wheelchair, was still mentally sharp and retained his position as the head of the company. He gave instructions via email and phone and attended meetings only when absolutely necessary. Susan, I'm sorry for all the trouble. It's fine, Dad. I still have so much to learn from you. During the time I cared for my father, he taught me a lot about management. Now that I think about it, I believe that my father was aware of his illness. From this time on, later we found out through tests that he had cancer, with only about a year left to live. I was shocked. I couldn't believe I had to part with my father so soon. I spent even more time with him than before. After his cancer progressed and he was hospitalized, I visited him every day. When his time was running short, he expressed his wish to entrust the company to me. I've taught you a lot, Susan, and you've learned well. I can trust you with the company. I'm counting on you for everything after I'm gone, okay? I understand. Leave it to me. And so I promised to protect my father and the company. A week later, he passed away. Many people attended my father's funeral, including company employees and his friends. They were all people who used to visit my father while he was in the hospital. Incidentally, my mother never visited him once. It seemed she didn't care about my father at all. I was so appalled that I thought it a waste of time to even confront her at the funeral. I thought I'd slap her if she pretended to cry, but she didn't change her attitude, even appearing bold. She told my father's friends she was sad as a formality, but it was obvious she was actually pleased by his death. The only reason for her to be happy about my father's death was his inheritance. My father, having run a company, had a substantial fortune. My mother was probably eyeing that. Right after the funeral, she immediately approached me. I'm going to take all of Dad's $1,984,000 inheritance now that caregiving is over. You're useless to me. Haha, please leave right now. I thought she really came at me with that right after the funeral. Unbelievable. But I already had plans for after my father's death, I said with a big smile. Thank you. I've been waiting for this. My mother was surprised by my unexpected reaction, but I didn't care and packed only the essentials. I'm going to sell all my stuff, just so you know. I'll do whatever you want with this house and $1,984,000 from him. I don't need anything else. I can live and play until I die. Good for you. Just enjoy the moment, right? You're a sore loser. She scoffed at me, but I ignored her and moved out soon after. A month later, my mother bombarded me with calls. Reluctantly, I answered. Hello, what's up? What do you mean by this? Why do I have to leave the house? Oh, that's because I inherited the house. What do you mean? Dad left the house to me, not you. I sold it for about $1 billion. $1 billion? It's sold for that much? Well, it doesn't matter. I have $1,984,000 inheritance, huh? What are you talking about? The inheritance distribution is already complete. What do you mean? I haven't received $1,984,000 yet. Of course you haven't. You're a stranger now. Dad kept those papers for any future eventuality, and before he died, he divorced you with those papers, so you won't get a single dollar of the inheritance. What? I've already spent so much on brand shopping and booked luxury hotels for overseas trips, thinking I had the inheritance. Oh dear, still so extravagant with money, huh? But that's over now. You'll have to work for the rest of your life. How can you speak to your own mother like that? You got $1 billion, pay for me, and find me a new house and place me as an executive in the company. Huh? What are you saying? Did you ever do anything for me? Don't conveniently bring up our parent-child relationship now. I don't think of you as my mother. Consider our parent-child bond severed. So please live your life however you like. Wait. I set her number to reject calls and informed the reception at the company to report her if she showed up. Afterwards, my mother, having relied on the inheritance for luxury, not only ran out of money but also got swamped with unpaid bills, ending up in debt. She had to work part-time jobs for the rest of her life to pay it back. It's her own doing, and honestly, she got what she deserved. On the other hand, I'm working hard every day to protect my father's company and the employees. It's challenging, but it's fulfilling, and I keep coming up with new ideas, different from my father's, keeping my curiosity alive. Moving forward, I plan to dedicate myself to my work and aim for greater heights as a business leader.